Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Swamp here, and we're gonna go over this recreation of "Work While You Talk" by Charles I and Supertask. I had a lot of fun recreating this. I learned a lot while I was doing it, and I hope you guys learned something along the way while I break this down. So let's jump right into it. And the first sound that we're going to be making is, or not making, but that I'm going to show you is this 808 sound. It's just a regular 808 that I ended up pitch bending, adding some post processing to. So let's check it out on its own. Cool. So this is all the processing for it. Let's go ahead and turn this off so you can hear what it sounds like originally. Oh, so with that. Doesn't sound great. There's a lot of weird like high-end stuff going on, so I EQ'd a lot of that stuff out. But first, there's a utility. I'm automating the gain at some points, so yeah, it's not doing a whole lot, just like 1 or 2 dB gain changes. And then over here, we've got a saturator boosting the drive about 4.5, 4.6 or so. Hard curve, we've got the bass up to 6.86. Frequency, width, and depth are stock. The output is turned down -6, and the dry wet is at 31%, but I am automating that over time, so certain parts are more saturated than others. As you can see, like here in the very beginning, there's no saturation being added, and then it increases, get a little bit more gritty, thick sub over here, and then it goes back down. Cool. So let's go ahead and jump into the next part, which is just the effects. There's like a nice sweep going into this. I just used a cashmere sweep. Oh, over here. Cool. And then we go into the first drop section, I guess. This is what that sounds like. Okay, so we already went over this 808. Let's go over some of these drums. Okay, so originally I was using this decap kick that I got on Splice, but I noticed that it wasn't hitting right. I'll show you before I was using this kick. It was like a little too thumpy, so I switched it out, and I'm using this other one. It's a tiny little thing. It's another sample from Splice. I've got the Cashmere Essentials kick on here. There's a little bit of tape saturation. I turned the pressure up, a little bit of the mid, a little bit of air, a tiny bit of transient, compression all the way down, and width that halfway. It's mono, so that doesn't really matter. And then after that, I have a drum bus, but it looks like I was not using that. That was originally on the decap kick that I was using. All right. And then we've got the sidechain trigger. It's the same MIDI as the kick drum, and then that's feeding into our sidechain up here. I'm using Duck Buddy. I'm only using one of these. I'm using Duck Buddy. I think this was from Slink. I found out about this through some random YouTube video, but it's a really nice sidechain And you can use it for more than just sidechaining. You can use it as like a transient shaper and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. You select the length of it, and if there's any clicking or popping, you can mess with the ramp and the smooth and the look ahead, and you can basically get rid of any clicks or pops that are happening from the side chain. Definitely look into it. It's a great tool. I also have the kilohertz limiter on here, and that's just, let's see. The threshold's down 1.29, and the release is at 19.19 milliseconds. 19.9 actually, sorry. Okay, let's go back into these drums. So we've got the sidechain trigger. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent there. We went over the kick, and then we've got a bunch of other stuff. So let me just mute the kick, and you can hear everything else that's going on. Okay, so we've got some glitchy stuff going on here. So this is like some keys. It's literally just like some keys jingling. And I used it to like kind of create a little glitch. And then over here, we've got this. It's like a open hi-hat to add more beef to that glitchiness. And then we've got this. This is what I really like about this little part. It's just a tiny little percussion sample. And I'm using an arpeggiator with I'm automating the rate on the free mode. So it's not synced to the BPM. And I've got an auto filter sweeping in from the low end. And then I've got another auto filter here. And that is sweeping out from the low end. So it kind of sweeps in and out at the same time. And also this is pitch bending, I do believe. Oh, whoops. Yeah, using a pitch bend on here. Cool. So from there, we go into some snare stuff. Here we've got a few different snares going on. All together, those are going to sound, oh, I didn't get this last one. Okay, so all together, these are going to sound like this. Well, let's just hear these drums by themselves. Every now and then, I'll just like make a glitch effect by just duplicating a bunch of MIDI notes. So you take basically multiple different sounds and then just duplicate a tiny little section of it, and then you get this like glitchy effect. You can do something really similar with like beat repeat, but it's not as controlled. Literally scissors snipping. Cutting out everything below 2.5 hertz or so. And we've got this like open hat kind of thing. And we've got some Foley and like just glitchy stuff. So in here, these little notes. So this is something cool I can show you actually. Like this note, this was just a regular hi-hat, and then I increased the on beats mode, increased the BPM up to 999, just maxed it out all the way, and it creates like a glitchy effect. It was like that originally, and now it sounds like that. Helps like with the glitchiness of everything. Okay, so from there, we've got Foley creating these weird sweepy swells. We've got more hi-hats. That sounds like an open hat. Some more Foley type stuff over here. It's like some keys. I don't know what that is. Let's see. Soft metal wire scratch movement. Cool. And then the stick. I don't really think that's a stick, but it sounds good. All that stuff together. Also, bear in mind keep in mind, there is a lot of variation going on the snare. It rarely is hitting the same snare every time. Well, I mean, it might be hitting the same snare, but then I'm adding different stuff on top of it to create variation. A lot of the time it'll just be, well, sometimes it'll just be a couple snare hits, and then other times it'll be like 6 or 7 things going on at the same time. There's that, and then you can hear the difference. Yeah. Okay, so that's basically it for the drums, I believe. This whole first section is basically done. Cool. And then we've got this little tom here. And it's low passed. Cut out some of the high end. Must have not liked what was going on there. Yeah, too much high end. And let's see if I pitched this at all or if I just left it as it was. Nope, it was just stock, just tom from, I think it's the Perfect Drums sample pack on Splice. I think it's Ahi's Perfect Drums sample pack. All right, so that's this section. Oh, we got this right on the snare. There's the laser. Now let's get into this. We went through that 808. We got this. This is I called it Wook While You Talk. I saved it as an instrument rack so I can go back and use it later. This is the sound. Pretty simple. All right, we've got 2 sine waves on, we're using basic shapes, sine wave on both of them. One of them's up 2 octaves with a +7 on the semitones. And then we've got, the random should be turned down on both of these. The random, when you have it all the way up, it's starting the waveform off in a different place every time. I want it to be consistent, so you can turn all of those down all the way. We're using FM from B, and oscillator B is turned down all the way. Oscillator B is turned up all the way. I mean, oscillator A is turned up all the way. Oscillator B is turned down all the way. We've got envelope 1 routed to the sub, but we're not even using the sub. So it's just shaped like this. This attack is stock. Decay is turned down to 315 milliseconds. Sustain is all the way down, and a little bit of release at 231 milliseconds. Next, we've got this LFO. This one's actually doing a little bit more. We're using it on FM from B, just a tad bit, modulating that, and the cutoff. The cutoff is really what's doing the most. Okay, so here's that sound soloed. The rate for the LFO is on 1/8 T, and then for triplet mode, and I think that's, oh, it's on mono. Legato always is on for the glide. It's turned up, or the portamento's up at 301 milliseconds. And in the effects tab, we've got distortion, we've got a filter, and we've got a little bit of reverb. So distortion is on tube, drive is up at 65%, mix is all the way up, it's on the off mode. We've got the filter frequency at 193 hertz, resonant all the way down, resonance all the way down, drive all the way down. Basically everything else is stock. Just make sure the cutoff is at 193 hertz. Reverb is on a Hall, 19% on the size. Decay is at 1.8 seconds. Low cut is at 30%. High cut is at 35%. Spin is at 25. This is, spin is stock, and spin depth is stock. Mix is at 30%. Cool. For post-processing, we've got just a low cut, cutting out everything below 190, 200 hertz or so. And then the utility is turning it up 10 decibels, 10.6. Okay, so that's the main lead sound. We're going to be using that a little bit later also. It's like interacting with a couple other sounds though. So over here, this lower wub, I made it in Vital. Cool. It's just a basic FM wub. Oscillator A or oscillator 1 is turned down 2 octaves. Oscillator B or oscillator 2 is turned up 7 semitones, very similar to the sound that we made earlier in Serum. Unison has got 1 voice on oscillator 1, 17% of the detune. 2 voices of unison on oscillator 2 and 1% on the detune. And then we've got FM going on over here. So it's set to FM from oscillator 2, and then we're modulating that with, let's see, with LFO1. It's going up a tiny bit from all, it's the knob is turned all the way down, and then the modulation is going up to, you can copy these settings here. Let's go over the LFO first. This is the shape that we're using. It's on trigger mode, and it's on half note for the rate, and then the smooth is turned up a little bit. Also on envelope 1, we've got the release turned up to 194 milliseconds. Let's see. Okay, so the filter, we're modulating the frequency of the cutoff with LFO1. It's going up. These are, you can copy these settings right here, and then the actual knob is set to this number here. All right, resonance is at 10%, 11%. Drive, okay, so last thing we've got in here, the drive of the distortion is being modulated by the LFO1, and that is going up 5.711, and then the actual knob is at negative 7.746. Okay, so now post-processing, there's a little bit of reverb on here. I'm using a reverb called ROM, but you can use any reverb you want. It really doesn't matter, whatever sounds good to you. The low cut is turned up to around here. Mix is only at 10%. The decay is at 1.6%. The size, all these other settings are stock. With reverb and without. All right. And the sub, we're using just a clean sub here. This isn't the same way that they did the sub, but I couldn't figure out exactly how they did the sub, so I just made a sub that worked. It's just a super low end sub. Yeah, we're basically rolling it off at around 100. Okay, next sound we're gonna go over is this little Hooter. Super simple sound. It's literally just a sine wave. You can copy all the settings here. For the envelope 1, we're using LFO2 to modulate, or LFO1, sorry, LFO1 to modulate everything. We've got the rate set to 1/8. It's on envelope, modulating the noise amount, the level of LFO or of oscillator 1, and the filter cutoff. We've got a little bit of compression on here also to make it a little bit fatter. All we've got going on is I've turned down the threshold to negative 15.4 and turned up the gain to 8.6. Okay, so next we've got this part. So I literally just resampled this from this. Let's go, and then I reversed it. So this is the original. And then I reversed it. And I guess I played with the pitch a little bit. I turned it down -4. And then we've got a wub down here. Again, it's like the same exact wub as that we made in Vital earlier, except the rate is a little bit different, I believe. Yeah, it's set to quarter notes. It's on envelope mode. Other than that, it's the same. The FM is up a tad bit. Earlier, this was down all the way. Now it's at 4.167. Yeah, same thing. Same, just the same exact sound, just used a little bit differently. That was this one, and yeah. See, it's like a lot of this stuff is really simple. You just gotta mess with it so you can get different tones and like variation and stuff. Down here we have one more 808, just a like sample from Splice, nothing on it, just turned down a little bit. And okay, so yeah, this is the next section. This is basically like the build up, or the next little build up. They don't really spend much time on this section. It's just like, what is it, 12 seconds of this or so, and then right into the next part, build it up, and then drop it into like the main drop. So these vocals, if you can guess what movie these vocals are from, good for you. Yeah, they definitely sampled this from a movie, and it's a modern movie made in the last like 5 years or so. If you can guess what it's from, brownie points for you. Comment below. Okay, so there's there's the vocals. Just cut out the low end on the main vocal, and then I added a bunch of reverb. I mean, sorry, a bunch of delay to the this other channel. I'm using the send for reverb, and I just got it about -45 on both of those. Do you mind if I work while you talk, while you talk, while you talk, while you talk, while you talk? Cool. We've got some effects going on here, just more sweeps. They have like a fluttery sweep, down sweep going on in the original. And then on top of that, just some more. So this is the fluttery one. This is the regular clean. I'm fading that one in so I can get like the beginning of the other sweeps. And then another sweep. This one's a little bit different. It's got that like tonal transient almost at the very beginning. And then a sweep up. Cool. Drums for this section sound like this. Cool. And then synths in this section, it's just more basses. It's the same 808 sound that we used earlier. I'm opening up the filter frequency. Sorry, that was supposed to be on. This is supposed to be on. This is supposed to be on. This is supposed to be on. I don't know if we talked about this earlier. I'm using an auto pan. I'm increasing the amount, and then it's creating like a pseudo sidechain. I'm using the triangle mode with no, that's a sawtooth. Using the sawtooth mode, the rate is at a quarter note. I'm automating the amount up to 77%. It's inverted, I believe. It normally looks like this. Click that, you get this shape, and then from there I've got the hiss erosion preset on here. The frequency is at 9.52, width is at 4.6, the amount is at 4.28. And then over here I've got another erosion on the sine mode. This one, the frequency is at 10.1 kilohertz. With this, I believe that's stock at 30%, and or actually it's deactivated because it's just on the sine mode, and then the amount is at 60.2. Okay. At the end there's like this little DJ scratching right before it drops. And I just used a random sample. It's called Scratch Baby. It's like some random scratching sample that I found. All right, this is what everybody's been waiting for. Here's the drop section. Okay, so we already kind of went over the drum sounds, but I created a new groove for the drop section, or they did. Cool. That was the drums. These are the synths. Okay, so something really key about this track is they were using the track delay. Yeah, the track is delayed 126 milliseconds. So keep in mind, like when you get a crazy groove, a lot of the times they're not hitting everything right on the nose. They're creating swing with like track delay or in the MIDI clip or playing it out on a keyboard. Okay, so we've got this. We already went over that sound. We've got this little Bunting sample in here. Shout out Bunting. Learned a lot from him. That is that sound, but I just like faded it out. Made it a little bit shorter to be like a nice hit and added a ton of reverb on it with a send over here. Other than that, there's no other post process. Cool. Next, we got this cool sound. It is a square wave. LFO is modulating a good amount of stuff. You can basically copy all these settings. This we can remove. I was trying to do something with FM, but it didn't sound great. I just ended up using a square wave instead. Cool. So yeah, LFO is on the level of the noise. It's on bright white, direct out. It's on the level of oscillator A. It's on the cutoff of the filter and the gain of this notch on the EQ at the very end. Other than that, we've got hyperdimension. You can copy all the settings here, distortion, compression, again, just pulling down on the threshold and the gain. And this EQ helps accentuate this little band right here. It's boosting the gain, so it's just going over 0. Starting a little bit lower than 0 and boosting it up a little bit more. You can hear the difference there. This is a nice little trick to get more tone out of your synths, like especially with wubs and stuff like this. You can put use like a notch filter basically, and then instead of like moving the frequency around, you can modulate the gain to boost or subtract, and that can give you a nice little extra thickness in the like whatever frequency range you're looking for. I tend to use it in like the low mids or like the mid range to give it more boost in that area. Okay, we've gone over all this. Here we go. The resonant square bass. Okay, there's kind of a lot going on here. So let's start getting into it. We are, as the title would suggest, we're using a square with some resonance on a filter to create this sound. Okay, so we've got the attack at, we're going to start with envelope 1 here. We've got the attack at 73 milliseconds. The decay is at 2.97 seconds. Sustain all the way down, releases at 224 milliseconds. Oscillator A is the wavetable position. Obviously, we're using basic shapes. Wavetable position is at the 4th position for a square. We're using a little bit of FM. Actually, we're not using FM because oscillator B isn't on. Again, I was trying something else out and it didn't really do what I was trying to do, so I did it with a square. Let's see, filter, we've got the cutoff turned all the way down. We're on MG low 12. Let's see, what is this? This is envelope 1 triggering the cutoff to open up to 53. I don't know what frequency that is, but yeah, that's the settings you're looking for there. Again, just hyper dimension mix. Actually, this is the first time we've used the hyper on the hyper dimension, I believe. It's got 4 voices unison, hyper all the way, or hyper is halfway up, size is halfway up, mix is at 0%, distortion drive is at 32%, mix is all the way up. We're on tube, it's set to off. Filter MG-Low 6, we've got the cutoff turned all the way down, and we're modulating that with envelope 3. Resonance, or sorry, envelope 1. Resonance is at like 28%, drive is up at 10%, and everything else is stock. Okay, we've got the macros mapped to some stuff also. So when I open up this macro, it's going to open up the filter cutoff, and on this filter and on this filter. So when I hit a note, it opens up the cutoff. And then this one over here, this is mapped to the decay. So when I turn this up, it gets shorter. You can see here, I mapped it to the decay, turned it back. And so as I increase this, it gets shorter. Both these macros are mapped out to the macros in an instrument rack, so I can just use those instead of going into Serum. Cool. Oh, to do that, you just hit the configure button. So Serum is normally like this. You open it up, hit configure, click on whatever you want. It'll pop up down here, right click, and then map it to your macros. Over here, we've got an auto filter with a high pass with a little bit of resonance. It is moving a little bit like that, and then the low end is just the low end. This is basically like a high-low crossover where you have the low end like staying clean, and then the high end we're adding a little bit more processing with this stuff over here. We've got more filtering going on, a little bit of movement on the frequency, and then the last thing is a little bit of gain on the utility is being automated at some points, I believe. Actually, no, it's not even being automated at all. I can just turn that off. Cool. So we've got that as a sound. It's the same sound that we're using over here. And some white noise. Got that scratch going on again with a fill. So there's like a drum fill and scratches. Okay, so we've got some new sounds going on here. This is just another donk sound. Let's go over it. It's just another square donk. It's basically the same sound that we made earlier. More stuff going on with envelopes though. So envelope 2 is mapped to the master tune. Go in here, see global master tune, and then is set to -12. Envelope 3 is set to the distortion drive. So every time the distortion hits, it peaks up like this, or every time the note hits. This sound right here. Yeah, you can just go ahead and copy all these settings here. This is being mapped to the noise, FM from B, and the cutoff. Got hyperdimension going on. You can copy all these settings over here. I had the distortion on originally, but I turned it off. I didn't need it. A little bit of chorus, more filtering at the very end, and then some reverb going on to give it some more space. Not a whole lot of reverb at all. It's pretty small. And then last thing is we've got the melody at the end. So this is operator. We've got 2 oscillators that we're using. First one is a sine wave. You can copy all the settings here. We're using this mode, set to 6 voices. Filters on. It is cutting off everything above like around 8 kilohertz. Volume is at -18. Oscillator B, you can copy these settings here, or the second oscillator. Yep, that's basically it for the actual sound. It's another sine wave for this oscillator as well. We've got an EQ without it. And the delay. I'm automating the dry wet up. Cool. I believe that is it. I think I've gone through just about everything. It's kind of a lot going on here. Again, I hope you learned something while I was going through this. I know I learned a lot while I was working on the remake. Yeah, there'll be more tutorials coming soon. I already have a couple other ones in the works right now. I just need to record the breakdowns. Got the project files already done for Kava it was Hawk and Charlesthefirst, and then Ocean Floor by Chimera. So let me know if there's any other tracks you want me to break down, and I hope I can get into it for you. Cool.